Hello, and welcome to Soul Aligned CEO Podcast. I'm your host, Jenny Mori, and on today's episode, I have a solo episode for you. And the topic that I would like to share about and discuss is grace, and more specifically, how to bring more grace into your day to day life. So, welcome. If you listened to last week's episode, it was all about living fully and why it's so important to, especially on a spiritual or awakening or consciousness journey, to make sure that we're not overly isolating ourselves and to get out there and to experience things, try new things, and to live fully. And so today's episode is a little bit of a continuation on that topic because I want to continue to discuss living, but through the lens of grace. So let's first discuss what is grace. So, if you were to look it up online and just get a simple definition of grace, you will see words like refined, to honor, simple, kind. And those all make complete sense to me. In addition to those words, when I think about grace, I think about it from the standpoint of an action. And it's almost that inner ability to step back and have an awareness and a connection to those around you. And by having that grace, you're giving that energy of, I see you, I honor you, and I'm kind. Now, I am by no means an expert on grace. It is something that has been deeply profound for me on my spiritual journey over the last 6 years. And as I have deepened into connections with myself, with Source, with Spirit, with those here on earth walking this journey with me, I have a really deep connection to grace. And at first, it was a little bit of just a conceptual connection because, of course, we all want to be as kind as possible, right? We all want to see each other as the human that we are. And we all want to honor each other and our experiences and our feelings. And so getting closer to grace for me has been an experience of becoming closer to love. And that might seem like a strange connection, but to me, there's a peacefulness to having grace. And with that peacefulness is a calm, is a joy, is a pleasant feeling. And to me, that ties directly to love. And so the more love that I see in myself, in the world, in those around me, I'm able to then step back and honor that. And through that honoring is grace. So I would be interested to know what those of you listening think about grace or how you would define it, because I think it evolves, especially as your awareness evolves and your connectedness on this journey kind of shifts and changes. But to me, grace is something that I really aim to embody very mindfully throughout my day. And so I'd like to share with you some of the ways that I really incorporate grace throughout my day to day activities. And so I know most of us, if you're like me and you have a lot going on, you probably think about your day in perhaps like three different segments, right? So when you first wake up, what are the things that you're doing to prepare yourself for the day? And then part two is really the bulk of your day and everything that you're doing. And then lastly, at night when you're winding down. So, I'd like to share with you about how I have been incorporating grace into all three of those elements of my day. So, first, in the morning, when we first wake up, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you potentially might have some meditation or prayer or connection to a higher power, whether that's God or source or universe, Gaia. It doesn't really matter what you call it. But I know that a lot of times having that practice in the morning is a very comforting and very peaceful way to start your day. In addition to that, something that I also do is I think about my day. Now, this isn't what you might consider it to be. I'm not going through my checklist and my to do list. Rather, I'm thinking about my day from the standpoint of who will I encounter throughout my day. So, in a way, I kind of go through my itinerary or agenda or checklist, but rather than thinking about what activity or what action I'm going to be doing, I'm thinking about who I'm going to encounter. So, a couple examples. So, let's say you have some meetings and you're either going into an office or you're doing meetings via Zoom. Regardless of what the objective or goal of that meeting is, you are with other people, right? And so, whether it's two people, three people, a dozen people, it doesn't matter, but something that really brings a lot of grace into the space is to think about those people just for a few seconds and offer them in your mind and sending that energy out into the universe grace. And you can do that by sharing love and joy and peace and harmony and whatever energetic words kind of fill your heart at the moment. But I send them that energy. And by doing that, I'm honoring them and I'm sending them grace. Another example might be if you have an appointment, and whether that appointment is a dentist appointment or you're taking your car in to get some service done. Again, you might not know everyone that you will encounter, but if you think about in your mind, who you might see in the waiting room and who is the receptionist at the counter, and you can offer them that same grace and peace and love and joy and honor them. So I take a few minutes in the morning and I simply think about my day like that. And I offer everyone I know I will encounter, and even those that I'm not sure who they are. They might be people in line at the grocery store. They might be a person that I have a fleeting glance with at the stoplight. But I think about all of those people that I am going to encounter and I honor them and I send them love and peace and joy. And to me, that's bringing in grace because I see them. So after I do that and I do all of my other morning routines, stretching, juicing, getting ready, and then as I go about my day, I now have that in the back of my head, what I thought about in the morning. So then when you are live in the situation and maybe there's a discussion that's getting potentially heated or something that's going on that you disagree with, you can step back in that moment and remember those feelings that you sent to that space and that energy and really be present. And being present to me is the foundation of having more grace, because if we don't have a presence to what we are participating in, who we are engaging in, what we're doing throughout the day, I have found that the more I slow down, the easier it is to have that presence, and then the easier it is to honor those that are in the space with me. So as I go throughout my day and everything that I'm doing, and even if I'm going for a walk or I'm sitting out reading a book or over at the beach, I am always reminding myself in that moment, like the energy that I had sent earlier that day. And now I embody it and I honor it. And again, to me, that's fully grace. So then in the evening, as I'm winding down, and maybe you have some sort of routine where you're stretching or doing yoga or doing meditation, or maybe you make some tea and you read, I'll spend a few minutes at the end of the day, in a way, just taking inventory and really thinking to myself, how did I do today? Were there areas throughout the day that I maybe could have been a little more kind? Were there instances that I was participating in where maybe I let my ego kind of come through a little bit more than I would have liked? And not to like good, bad, wrong, right, indifferent. It's more just an awareness of, was I present? Was I honoring those that I was interacting with? And did I have grace? And so that's really how I think about my day. And it's a practice. It's really no different than if you're on a certain meal plan or you're doing a certain exercise regimen, meditation. It really kind of falls into place with any of those types of activities. But I've found that the more that I practice these three simple ways of bringing grace into my life throughout the day, I'm happier. I have more peace and love and just presence, and I enjoy what I'm doing. So give it a try. I would be interested to know what you all think, and maybe even just try one aspect of it. If you want to start with the morning and think about your day and think about who you might encounter and send them grace, send them love, send them peace. Or maybe as you're going throughout your day, then you can add on really being present to that energy that you had established already for that certain circumstance. And then in the evening, when you feel ready, you can layer on kind of just taking inventory and seeing how you feel and how the day went. So it's a really interesting exercise, and the perspective that it gives you really brings you closer to yourself. So, the last thing that I want to share about that is kind of quite related to grace is compassion. And this day and age in our modern, especially Western society, we are kind of in that hustle and bustle. And I talked a little bit about it in last week's episode, how we tend to keep cycling through spring and summer, spring and summer, spring and summer, constantly doing, constantly producing, being in action. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'd like to also offer as a perspective, along with grace, is also compassion. And with compassion, there's also an element of connectedness to each other. And we're all in this kind of space and time continuum, so to speak. And we're all interacting and kind of going about our day to day lives, but we're all so very connected. And so I'd like to actually share with you about a story that I recently became aware of about one of my ancestors. And so I have some relatives that have been kind of going through ancestry and putting together different charts and trying to learn about our family history. And in doing so, we were able to discover that there is an ancestor three generations back, so early 1900s, that came over here from abroad by herself at 12 years old. And so she took a voyage on a ship for a little over 3 weeks, again, by herself, coming to America to meet other relatives that were already here. And so she was coming from a situation where she no longer had parents where she lived. And so she was making that journey. And reading about this story and her arriving at Ellis Island really hit me this week. And I felt so very connected and so very compassionate towards what that must have been like. I can't even imagine, as an adult, just going to New York City and we have all of our conveniences and you'll have a place to stay and you'll have money and you'll have food to eat. But put yourself back to the early 1900s for a second. And there's a purpose to me sharing this story because this young girl arriving at Ellis Island with nothing more than excitement and hopes and dreams and the wonder of possibility really, really impresses on me the importance of being compassionate and being kind and really having grace. And so it was very heartwarming to find out that when she got to Ellis Island and after she got through, there was a family there that was actually there volunteering and helping new arrivals, especially young children that were coming by themselves. And so she had a place to stay. A family welcomed her in and helped her until she was able to take a train a few days later to reunite with her family. And so this story, two things. First of all, just really hit me from the standpoint of like, wow, what courage and what fortitude and what hope must an individual have had, just a little over 120 years ago. That's not that long ago. And so it really made me feel very proud that she had that courage. And I had a lot of compassion for her for going through that experience. And so bringing that now back full circle to what we were speaking about today. And it's just, you don't ever know someone's story, someone's background, where they're coming from. And so, whenever you have the really beautiful opportunity to interact with someone, have that compassion and have that understanding of, here you are in this same place and moment, but you don't know what the prior moments have held for this particular person, and really having that compassion and grace to honor and to see that person fully, whether it's a small interaction at a grocery store or with a colleague that you've known for years. I think shifting that perspective and just having that gratitude to be in that space with that other person, knowing all of the series of events that have had to occur in order for that to line up. So I'd like to leave you with a quote today, actually, and I wrote it down, so I'm going to read it. And this quote is by Anne Lamott, and it is entitled Grace. I do not understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are and doesn't leave us where it found us. Grace by Anne Lamott. I want to thank you so much for listening, and I hope that you are enjoying these episodes where I'm just sharing a little bit of perspective and things that I'm thinking about on a day-to-day basis, and I hope that they help you too. So until next time, I wish you much peace, love, and joy as you continue to pursue being soul aligned.